What do you mean, you don't have the keys? The house is empty? That didn't make any sense. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, fingers tightening around my phone. Across the street, an elderly man I vaguely recognized was staring at me from his porch, no doubt wondering why I was pacing back and forth in front of what used to be my house. I'm Liana Torres, and I had just driven 4 hours from my college in Santa Cruz to spend spring break in Fresno. But when I pulled up to the place I'd called home for most of my life, I was greeted by a for sale sign stuck crookedly in the front yard. The blinds were gone, the windows bare. Inside, I could see nothing but emptiness. No furniture, no life. On the porch sat 3 large garbage bags, like someone had taken out the trash and forgotten to bring it to the curb. Before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below, letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. We're excited to connect with all of you, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more amazing content. Now back to the story. Out of instinct, I peeked inside one of the bags. My clothes, my old textbooks, pieces of a life I hadn't expected to find packed up like leftovers. "Your dad said you should have called ahead," came my Uncle Javier's voice over the phone, slow and unsure. "They moved last week. You didn't know?" "No," I managed to whisper, throat tight. "Nobody told me anything." I hung up and immediately tried calling my dad. Each ring stretched longer than the last. Then, finally, "Hello?" Flat. Cold. Not a trace of warmth. "Dad, the house is empty. My things are outside in trash bags." "What happened?" There was a pause. "We moved. You're on your own now. Deal with it." Click. I stood there, stunned. Tried calling back, straight to voicemail. I tried my mom's phone, then my little sister's. No answer. Nothing, like I didn't exist anymore. Just like that, my family had erased me. I stood on the curb as the golden sunset pulled long shadows across the yard. The oak tree my father and I planted when I was in elementary school was still standing, its branches stretching out toward a house that no longer belonged to me. I had been sending part of my scholarship home every month. I was studying pre-law with a 3.9 GPA while juggling a part-time job. I had always been the dependable one, the quiet one. I stayed out of trouble. I followed the rules, and this was how they repaid me? I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I dragged those bags to my car, stuffed them in the back seat, and drove to a dingy motel. On the scratchy bedspread, I laid out what was left of my life. A few coats, a couple books, a cracked photo frame of a beach day with my family, everyone grinning like nothing was ever wrong. That night, I made a choice. If they were going to erase me, I'd return the favor. I'd cut the ties, I'd start over, and I'd build something they could never tear down. Growing up, family first was drilled into us. My parents moved from El Salvador before I was born, and they reminded us daily of the sacrifices they'd made. "We came here with nothing so you could have everything," my dad would say, always during dinner. "Education is your ticket." I listened. When other kids went out partying, I stayed in and studied. While my classmates took mall jobs during the summer, I interned at the courthouse. Getting into college on a pre-law scholarship was supposed to be the return on their investment. But my younger sister, Daniela, was different. She hated school, lived for video games, and had even been caught shoplifting, twice. Still, my parents defended her, protected her, forgave her. "She's just figuring herself out," they'd say. So maybe that's why it hit so hard. The good daughter got left behind, while the reckless one was kept close. That night, in that motel room, I picked up the phone and called my professor, Dr. Halverson, who'd been something of a mentor to me. "They just left?" she asked, her disbelief clear. "Yes, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure what to do next. I can't go back to the dorms, they're closed for break. And My voice cracked. The pain I'd been holding back started to seep through. "Liana, listen to me," Dr. Halverson said gently. "Come stay with me until the dorms reopen. We'll figure things out together." She lived in a cozy old Victorian home on a quiet street, full of dusty books, mismatched rugs, and 2 grumpy but lovable cats. She gave me the guest room and handed me a house key. "No time limit," she said. "Just focus on your studies." So while other students were spending spring break relaxing, I buried myself in legal research. Dr. Halverson had helped secure a summer internship for me at Calderon and Hughes, a firm that worked on housing discrimination cases. The irony of it all wasn't lost on me. Channel what you're feeling, she told me over a mug of peppermint tea one evening. Some of the best advocates are the ones who've been through it themselves. I nodded, thinking about those photos I had found crushed at the bottom of a garbage bag. My quinceañera, my graduation, birthdays, all those celebrations we once held so tightly, discarded like trash. That night, I blocked their numbers. Mom, Dad, Daniela, even Tia Carmen, who always played mediator. If anyone asked about my family from that point forward, I just said, "We're not in touch." I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I wasn't interested in pity. I was building something from the ground up, and I didn't want nostalgia getting in the way. That summer, my internship changed everything. At first, I was fetching coffee and sorting files, but my supervisor, attorney Renee Ellison, quickly realized I had a way of making people feel heard. "You've got something rare, Liana," she said after I helped calm a frantic mother who was about to be kicked out of her apartment. "You don't just listen, you make people feel seen." Soon I was helping with intake interviews, meeting families pushed out of their homes by greedy developers, retirees facing massive rent hikes, and students stuck in housing scams. Every story felt personal. Every eviction notice hit me like a familiar wound. One late evening, after interviewing 3 families from the same apartment building, each given just 2 weeks to leave, I stayed late, surrounded by stacks of notes and files. Renee found me still there at 9 p.m. "Working overtime?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "These developers are giving families 2 weeks in a motel in exchange for breaking their leases." "That's it," I said, shaking my head. "How is that even legal? They'll be homeless." She sighed. "It's awful, but sadly, the law doesn't always require more." "But it's wrong," I said. 2 weeks? No one can find a decent place in that time, especially with deposits, background checks, and first month's rent. The whole system is broken." Renee looked at me seriously. "So what are you going to do about it?" That question stuck with me for days. What could I do? I was just a second-year undergrad with an internship. But the answer came unexpectedly during a mandatory campus financial aid meeting. The presenter mentioned social innovation grants, funding for student-led projects that addressed community needs. The deadline? 2 weeks away. I stayed up for 3 nights writing a proposal for a student-run housing advocacy program. I named it Hearthline Project. It would serve students and low-income tenants alike. Renee helped me shape the legal side. Dr. Halverson combed through my draft line by line. While I waited to hear back, something else happened, something I should have seen coming. My phone lit up with a voicemail from my dad. It had been 6 months since they'd tossed me out without a word. "Liana, your mother is worried about you. Call us." No apology, no explanation. Just the expectation that I'd come running, as always. I didn't. 3 days later. "This is childish, Liana. We're your family." I saved the message, but said nothing. The calls started picking up. Dad? Mom? Daniela? Some were aggressive, others full of guilt, but none of them ever said they were sorry. When the university awarded me the $25,000 grant to launch Hearthline, I celebrated with Renee and Dr. Halverson, not with the people who used to be my family. When Calderon Hughes offered me a part-time paid position to continue the work through the fall semester, I didn't text anyone about it except the people who'd actually supported me. By January, Hearthline had already helped 23 students fight unfair evictions. We worked out of a storage room in the law firm's building, 2 volunteer paralegals, and a handful of law students earning clinical hours. I spent my days running from class to case files. My nights were filled with court prep and strategy meetings. It was exhausting. But it mattered. Every single student we helped stay in their home felt like a piece of my own healing. Every time we helped a student avoid eviction, it felt like I was reclaiming a part of myself. Like I was turning what happened to me into something that could protect others. Meanwhile, the calls from my parents intensified. Sometimes once a day. Sometimes several times. When I still wouldn't answer, they began using extended family. Tia Carmen texted, "Your mom cries every night. Can't you just forgive them already?" I didn't reply. Forgiveness to me meant taking responsibility. And they still hadn't done that. One Tuesday afternoon in February, I was helping a sophomore named Marcus. He'd come back from winter break only to find that his landlord had rented out his room, even though his lease was paid in full. As we were going over his options, the office phone rang. Hearthline Project. This is Liana. A pause. Liana, is that you? It was my mother. My chest tightened. How did you get this number? It's listed on your website, she said, her voice soft. Why haven't you answered us? We're worried sick. I looked over at Marcus, who sat there trying to pretend he wasn't listening. I held the phone close and whispered, Give me a second, okay? He nodded and stepped out. Back on the line, I kept my voice steady. This is my workplace. Please don't call me here. We're your parents, she said, emotion rising in her voice. We have a right to talk to you. You lost that right, I said. When you abandoned me, when you dumped my things in trash bags and disappeared without warning, I'm not doing this with you. Your father made a mistake, she said quickly. We had financial problems. The house was about to be foreclosed. We didn't know how to tell you. We were ashamed. That cracked something in me. Foreclosure? Money troubles? They'd never said anything. I thought back to all the months I'd been sending home part of my scholarship. If you were struggling, you could have told me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I was already helping. I would have done more. Your father wouldn't allow it, she said. His pride, you know how he is. I did know. His pride ruled everything, but pride didn't justify betrayal. I have to go, I told her, trying not to let the shakiness creep into my tone. Please respect my boundaries. I hung up. My hands were trembling. That conversation dug up emotions I thought I'd already buried. Anger, yes, but also that old persistent sense of responsibility. The same one they always used to manipulate me. Later that night, Renee found me still at my desk, staring blankly at our client call logs. You okay? She asked. You've been off all day. I hesitated, then told her. I want to believe they had a good reason, I admitted. Maybe it wasn't just about cruelty. She thought for a moment. People don't always act out of malice, but a reason isn't an excuse. Even if they were in trouble, they still chose to leave you behind. She was right, and still, a seed of doubt had been planted. The next day, against my better judgment, I typed their names into Facebook. What I found erased every trace of that doubt. 3 weeks after they left me, my mom had posted a photo, her, Dad, and Daniela standing in front of a new house, all smiles. The caption, Fresh Start, so blessed. There had been no foreclosure, there had been no shame. They had simply decided to move on, without me. The missed calls piled up like layers of snow. 120, 157, over 200. Their voicemails changed tone over time, some demanding, others pleading, some just narrating their lives, like I was part of it. Daniela got into community college, Mom said in one message. She's studying computer programming. You always said she had a good brain. Another, the neighbors made us tamales. Not as good as your mom's, but nice of them. The casualness of it all, the way they acted like we were just chatting, made me angrier than the silence ever had. Meanwhile, Hearthline was gaining attention. A local news station ran a short feature on us. They interviewed a few students we'd helped. After that, the university paper did a write-up on my approach to student legal aid. More exposure meant more cases, more stress. We were swamped. We need help, I told Renee one afternoon. More space, more volunteers, more everything. She nodded. I might have a solution. The Watkins Foundation is taking applications for their annual social justice grant. It's competitive, but it could fund the project long-term. I straightened the collar of my navy blazer, my go-to for moments like this. Professional, but not too intimidating. I needed to look confident, even if my stomach was in knots. The board can be a bit stiff, Renee warned as we waited. But they care about impact. Focus on the human side, how Hearthline changes lives. We were ushered into a sleek boardroom. 8 people sat around a massive glass table. Business execs, donors, even a retired judge I recognized from my research. At the head sat William Watkins himself. Miss Torres, Miss Ellison, welcome, he said warmly, gesturing to the front. We were impressed with your proposal. Now show us why Hearthline deserves our support. I plugged in my laptop and launched into our presentation. I told the story of how Hearthline started, from a few frantic notes in a storage room to real, tangible results. I walked them through the families we helped, the students we empowered, the policies we challenged. Renee added legal context, explaining the holes in the system our project was filling. But 20 minutes in, just as I was sharing our vision for expanding beyond campus, the door opened. A staff member leaned in and whispered something to Mr. Watkins. He frowned, then turned to me. "I'm sorry for the interruption," he said. "Miss Torres, there are some people here. They say they're your family. They're insisting they speak with you." My heart slammed against my ribs. "My family?" "They say it's urgent," he added awkwardly. "We can ask them to wait." Renee gently touched my elbow. "Your call, Liana." I took a deep breath. After nearly a year of silence, they'd somehow decided now was the moment, during the most important presentation of my life, to show up. "Please let them know I'll talk with them after the meeting," I said, keeping my voice calm. "This can't wait, for me." Mr. Watkins nodded, and the assistant disappeared. I turned back to my presentation, but the rest of it felt like I was speaking underwater. I answered their questions. I showed the charts. I made my final pitch. But all the while my thoughts raced. Why now? Why here? What do they want? When we wrapped up, Mr. Watkins smiled and said they'd make a decision in 2 weeks. Renee squeezed my hand. "You killed it," she whispered. "Especially given that." Outside the boardroom, I saw them, my mother, my father, and Daniela, sitting in the reception area like they hadn't torn my life apart. My mom stood as soon as she saw me, eyes wide and watery. My father stayed seated, arms folded, unreadable. Daniela looked older, guiltier. "Liana," my mom started, stepping toward me. "We need to talk." Renee leaned in. "I'll wait for you outside. Call me if you need anything." I nodded, then faced them. "How did you even know I'd be here?" "We saw the university article," my mom said. "It mentioned your grant presentation. We've been trying to reach you for months." "I noticed," I replied coolly. 247 missed calls. Impressive." My father stood. "This has gone on long enough. You're being immature." I let out a laugh, cold and bitter. "Immature? You left my belongings in garbage bags and sold our house without a single word. You disappeared. And now I'm the one being childish?" "We made a mistake," my mother said, her voice shaking. "We want to fix it." "Oh, now you want to fix it after I rebuilt my life from scratch?" I shook my head. "Why now?" Daniela stepped forward. "Just hear them out, okay?" I crossed my arms. "Is this about the inheritance?" All three of them stiffened. "That's why you're really here, isn't it?" I said. "Because the money came through?" My father's jaw clenched. "You're always so quick to judge." "And you're always so quick to walk away," I snapped. "You knew about Grandma's estate back in March. You kept it a secret, and then you threw me out." My mom's eyes filled with tears. "You know?" "I know everything," I said flatly. "So I'll ask again. What do you want now?" The lobby wasn't the place for a scene. I agreed to walk with them to a coffee shop down the street. We sat in silence for a moment before my mom finally spoke. "We were ashamed," she said quietly, not meeting my eyes. "The house, we were behind on payments. Your dad lost his job. I couldn't make enough cleaning houses. We didn't know how to tell you." "So you just left me?" I kept my tone calm but firm. "We found out about your grandmother's inheritance right after you went back to school," my dad said. "The lawyers told us you'd get it when you turned 21. We thought maybe if we moved, if we could fix our finances first, we could cover it up." I finished for him. "Sell the house, pretend it never happened, and hope I didn't notice?" "We panicked," my mom whispered. "We panicked," my mom repeated, eyes low. "Your father thought you were better off away from the mess. You had your scholarship, your future, your professors." "And now," I asked, "why are you really here? What changed?" They exchanged glances. Daniela shifted uncomfortably. "They regret what happened," Daniela said. "They know it was wrong." My father cleared his throat. "We saw the article about Hearthline, your work. We didn't realize what we'd lost." "Oh," I said with a dry smile, "you mean your successful daughter? That's what you lost?" "No," my mom said quickly. "We lost our family, we lost you." I looked at them. These people who once defined my entire life and identity. Now they just look like strangers with too much history between us. My mother had streaks of gray in her hair. My dad's posture was hunched, worn. Daniela seemed older somehow, her confidence dimmed. "I've built something new," I said finally. "I have people in my life who show up for me without expectations. People who didn't throw me away." "We're still your family," my father said, almost pleading. I looked him in the eye. Family doesn't dump your life on a porch and disappear. I stood and pulled out some bills to cover all our drinks. I don't need closure from you. I've moved on. If you really want to make things right, start by respecting the space I've asked for. And with that, I walked away. I didn't feel triumphant or spiteful, just solid, stronger than I'd ever felt before. I had faced them on my own terms and walked away still standing, whole. The next morning, my phone rang. It was the Watkins Foundation. Hearthline had been awarded the full grant, $300,000 over 3 years, plus an extra $50,000 for operations. Later that day, a national media outlet reached out. They wanted to feature Hearthline in a segment on innovative solutions to housing justice. I said yes. When the story aired 2 weeks later, I learned through mutual connections that my family saw it. Watched the entire thing. They never called again? And honestly, that was fine. Sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the one you're born into. And moving forward, I knew one thing for sure. I would never again let anyone else define my worth.